Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss how 7-bin Sunak now seems to be adopting a scattergun approach to policies. He's been firing out such a random mix over a series of days that you could be forgiven for thinking that he's completely lost control and is now just making up policies on the spot in the desperate hope that one of them resonates with a public that has left him now. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So I think Sunak's worried. I think he's worried about maintaining his already shaky control over his party. And the reason I say this is because he made a major policy announcement last week related to net zero. Then a couple of days later, we start to get more policies out of the blue, completely unrelated policies. Anti-smoking policies, eliminating inheritance tax, scrapping A-levels, which is our post-16 qualification, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Now, I'll talk more about my thoughts on the individual policies in the second half of the video, but I want to discuss the facts of them first. So let's look at the situation. Despite the right-wing press trying to say that the public approve of Sunak's net zero change, this is not true. Like, I did a video on why I think Sunak is getting this badly wrong quite recently, but since then, 2 polls have been published which measured Sunak's approval rating, and the fieldwork was done after he made those net zero announcements. In both cases, his approval rating went down. This looks like it's backfired, and I think he knows it. After all, why would you follow up on the net zero announcements? Because lots of the right wing go, oh, this is the thing that's going to win them the election. This is it. So if that was the true, or they believed it, you would keep pushing it and you'd keep talking about it, wouldn't you? Why would you follow up the net zero announcements, the major policy announcements last week, with several other completely unrelated new policies? I'll tell you what I think. Sunak's main attraction for the Conservatives is that he was popular. Way more popular than his party. It was expected that he would raise the popularity of the party, that they would leech off his popularity. The reverse has happened. The popularity of the Conservative Party has remained low. Not just remained low, remained at the same low. But Sunak's popularity has tanked. He is now almost as unpopular as his party. There are danger signs for Sunak. He already has some sections of the party just waiting for their chance to bring him down. He has 2 tricky by-elections coming up. Current polling suggests that he will lose Tamworth to Labour. That would be just as big a blow as when they lost Selby. Mid-Bedfordshire, too close to call, absolutely too close to call, could be anything. And the fear is that the Tories sneak this with Labour and the Lib Dems knocking each other out. But that is the feared outcome. It's not the likely outcome. Despite it being too close to call, the latest polling, which is specifically for that by-election, suggests that the Conservatives could actually finish in 3rd place. That outcome would be a disaster for Sunak. Cannot believe that his opponents within the Conservative Party would maintain a dignified silence should that happen. I think Sunak is mindful of a potentially treacherous conference next weekend and then these by-elections, and thinking that if the wheels fall off, discipline within the party collapses. I don't think he'd be deposed. I just don't think there are sensible alternatives. I also think a lot of Tory MPs would fear the potential for Suella Braverman becoming leader, because that's not going to be an improvement. But all it would take is for enough MPs to trigger a confidence vote, and his authority would be destroyed. No way back. So I think Sunak is desperate now. Recently, when discussing him breaking his manifesto promises regarding net zero, I said that there would be a reason for it. It might be related to the financial gain for his family, but there would be a reason. I specifically said he wasn't just spinning the wheel of policies. I think I need to correct myself. If you make a major policy announcement and you think it's resonating with the public, you do not draw attention away from it with a series of other completely unrelated policy announcements. You maintain focus on what you think is a vote winner. Like, I've talked about the importance of a few key messages to the public in the past. If you talk about too many policies, the public aren't spending very long listening to the ones which are your main vote winners, because you're spreading yourself too thin. You know, the Tories get more bandwidth than Labour due to the support from almost all of the media, but the same basic rules apply. If net zero U-turns were vote winners, you would not distract the public with talk of completely different policies. But if we assume that Sunak is being told that his net zero gambit doesn't seem to be going well, are his latest policy announcements any better? Well, first, the anti-smoking announcement. Basically, it seems to be, although I don't seem to receive details, about effectively raising the age at which you'd be able to smoke. Now, there's nothing in theory to complain about here. There have been moves since I was a small boy, at least, across both Conservative and Labour, and then Conservative governments again, to slowly make smoking less attractive. The policies have worked. We've got way fewer people smoking these days. It's a little bit unusual for Conservatives to do it because of the smoking lobby, but they're obviously not as powerful these days. The trick, of course, is to dissuade a few at a time. Can't just ban smoking, be an absolute outcry, but a bit at a time. So the idea of effectively raising the age at which you can smoke might make sense. My concerns with the policy are that, one, Sunak doesn't have a history of making policies based on research analysis. Has there been research on this? Have experts said, oh, do this next, and that will help reduce smoking? It makes me wonder if the policy hasn't actually just been made up on the spot without any reference to experts. Second, at a time when Sunak is trying to work out how to win votes, how does this do it? It might be a good policy. Maybe it has been proposed by experts. Maybe it's a good policy to go with next. But it can have no serious bearing on voting intention. And right now we're in a very politically intense period of British politics. So why waste your bandwidth on a policy that can't possibly swing any votes, really? The second policy is scrapping inheritance tax. Now, this is based on a cynical lie, but it at least makes sense politically, sort of. The issue with inheritance tax is that according to polls, about 30% of people think it applies to them. So there's a certain appeal in Sunak promising to scrap it. However, parents can actually leave £1 million worth of inheritance to their children and not pay a penny of inheritance tax. So in reality, inheritance tax actually only applies to 3.5% of people, like the very wealthiest. And when you bear in mind, we have about 10% of people go to private school in this country. So that's 10% of people that we know for certain are wealthy enough to afford private education for their children. So that's the level we'll talk about. And we know that actually there's more than that because there'll be plenty of people who are wealthy enough to do that and just don't do it out of choice. So when you sort of compare that to inheritance tax only actually applies to 3.5% of people, it's like it really doesn't affect ordinary people. Now, I mean, I've got a general problem with the generosity of inheritance tax limits, I have to say. It's like it's unearned income. You don't earn it. You don't do anything for it. It's just free. It's bonus. It's bonus for your parents dying. Lovely. If you pay tax on earned income, why would you not pay tax on unearned income, something you did nothing for? I get that it has to be a little bit more generous, right? Because you don't want a situation where ordinary people are inheriting like items, that modest estates, and then being forced to sell items of sentimental value in order to cover for the tax. I get that. But £1 million is already super generous. But like I say, this one makes sense politically, you could say, because there's about 10 times more people think it affects them than actually does. Interestingly, however, if Sunak does go ahead with this policy, it's proof that he knows he's not winning the election. Experts are quite clear that there is no room for any tax cuts. In fact, on top of everything else, the latest news is that we need another £8 billion just to keep pace with the current levels of social care in England. And the current levels of social care in England are crap. Well, this affects, of course, the most active group of voters. The idea that the Conservatives could actually cut taxes if they were to remain in government is for the birds. Experts are quite clear. It's impossible. It's impossible. So promises of tax cuts are just a cynical ploy to retain as many seats as possible, whilst knowing that Labour will win anyway. Either that or they're comfortable with just breaking those promises if they win the election. In 2019, where of course they expected to win the election, they did similar things. They said they wouldn't increase taxes, then they did. I remember at the time, the likes of the Financial Times saying, well, they're going to have to. They said they did it in a very subdued way because at the end of the day, the Financial Times, when it comes down to it, generally backs the Conservatives. But they were nonetheless saying, yeah, these spending plans don't add up. The Mail on Sunday is today carrying out the front page headline that Sunak will not drop the triple lock on pensions. I'm not sure how it's front page news. Prime Minister is going to stick with a manifesto promise. That's quite embarrassing to be front page news. But they say that as if he's like maintaining a manifesto promise. But actually, he's already broken the triple lock. It would be more accurate to say he's not going to break it again. Then the final new policy announcement. Scrapping A-levels. Altogether, completely. In favour of a continental-style baccalaureate programme of study between 16 and 18. That is how the Mail are reporting it. I nearly spat my Vimto out when I saw them. The Mail! The ones who are trying to get us to start a war with France, reporting on this in positive terms. Like, if Labour proposed something like this, they'd hold it up as evidence that Starmer wants to hand the UK back over to Brussels to become one of the United States of Europe. Starmer can't even eat a croissant without being accused of some sort of betrayal. Yet Sunak can propose obliterating a unique British system, slightly different in Scotland, of tertiary education in favour of copying a continental system that France, for example, use. And not a murmur of concern. Support, in fact. Mind you, I did have to laugh when the article said no final decision has been taken. Of course not, they've just made it up. There's no plan for it. This is like his 7 bins and the meat tax. If this were a serious policy proposal, the Department of Education would already have a paper ready to publish. They'd have already worked on it, explaining how it might work. There is no such paper because Sunak has just made it up on the spot. He wasn't... These 3 policy announcements, right? He won't have been planning on making them as of like the start of last week. It's just reactionary. I absolutely guarantee it's reactionary. Or one of his advisors made it up. Someone's just making these up on the spot. I don't know. Sunak just seems to be in free fall here. I get the impression he's worried about the next few weeks. Or maybe, I suppose an alternative is he's firing out all these policy proposals. It's a rushed method of gathering public opinion quickly to inform the manifesto because he is, as some people think, intending to announce the general election for this autumn. Maybe that's what it's about. Although I would say, given he's suffered a further blow to his personal approval ratings, I don't know whether that seems more or less likely now. But we will see. We won't have very long to wait. The Tory conference is next weekend. Either way, there is nothing controlled about the way Sunak is doing things right now. Like, it used to be ineffective but controlled. Like, there used to be some sort of plan. It wasn't a good one, but there used to be. Now he's just spinning that wheel of policies and seeing what sticks. He'll be banning woke hedgehogs next week. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.